Imagine this. You wake up, check your phone, scroll through memes, sensationalist news, shallow jokes, and go about your day with a faint sense of being informed.
But what if I told you that without realizing it, you're being tamed? That behind the easy laughs, the shallow entertainment, and the ready-made opinions, there's a force acting with surgical precision to keep you exactly where you are. No, we're not talking about some crazy conspiracy. We're talking about stupidity, not the lack of intelligence, but the choice of comfortable ignorance. And more than that, the psychology behind how it's cultivated, spread, and used as a tool of control. The first thing we need to understand is that stupidity isn't just an individual condition. It's a cog in a much larger system. A system that rewards conformity and punishes critical thinking. In a world flooded with stimuli, those who pause to reflect are seen as slow. Those who question too much are inconvenient. The system rewards those who obey, who repeat, who fit in, and stupidity becomes a strategic advantage. Now think about how this logic shows up in your daily life. You're at work, you notice something wrong but feel like you can't speak up. Or you watch a TV show that borders on the absurd, but everyone around you watches it too, and you don't want to seem too intellectual. The truth is, there's a psychological cost to staying lucid. The path of comfortable ignorance is much more rewarding in the short term. That's why so many people choose it. Aldous Huxley warned us about this. The danger of a society that doesn't need explicit repression because its masses are too distracted to notice the chains. In this scenario, stupidity isn't a mistake, it's a tool. And the more you laugh at the distractions, the less you notice what you're losing. You think you're thinking for yourself, but think again. How many of your opinions are truly your own? How many were copied, absorbed, inherited, repeated? The information age hasn't made us wiser. On the contrary, it gave us the illusion of wisdom. Slogans replaced arguments. Catchphrases replaced reflection. What's popular becomes truth, and what requires thinking gets discarded. And the strangest part, this phenomenon happens even to those who see themselves as critical, alternative, outside the box. The boxes change color, but they're still boxes. The internet gives us a false sense of intellectual autonomy, when, in reality, it filters what we see, what we read, what we believe. The bubble you get your information from is way more comfortable than you think. Michel de Montaigne, centuries ago, saw this clearly. The obsession with control is the greatest prison of thought. We think we're choosing, but really, we're just clicking on options already chosen for us. Freedom of thought only begins when we dare to question what seems obvious, especially what everyone around us accepts without thinking. In a world where everyone needs to be accepted, mediocrity is celebrated as a virtue. Being average is being safe. Too much intelligence? It's intimidating. Depth? It's exhausting. Questioning? It's annoying. Society prefers the predictability of ready-made ideas over the discomfort of critical thought. Arthur Schopenhauer saw this with brutal clarity. Intelligence acts like a mirror, and no one likes to see their own limitations reflected back at them. That's why intelligent people are often isolated, and this isn't just a perception, it's reflected in the way we reward shallowness and reject complexity. Think of the biggest influencers today. How many are celebrated for their depth of thought? And how many are idolized for entertaining without making anyone uncomfortable? Mediocrity became a product, easy to consume, easy to like. Stupidity, on the other hand, doesn't threaten. It unites, it pleases, it doesn't ask for much. That's why it's applauded. Those who challenge the norm are quickly labeled arrogant, difficult or unnecessary. But the discomfort we feel in the face of deep thought says more about our own limitations than about the one expressing it. And then he appears, the confident ignoramus, the charismatic fool, the one who speaks with conviction even if he has no idea what he's talking about. He dominates conversations by tone, not by content. We live in the era of empty certainty, where shouting louder matters more than being right, where doubt is seen as weakness, and ignorance is branded as authenticity. And this figure is celebrated, amplified, and rewarded. It doesn't matter if what they say is false, offensive, or ridiculous, as long as it's said with passion, because today, passion matters more than truth. The Dunning-Kruger effect explains this. The less competent someone is, the more they overestimate their ability, and the most competent, they doubt themselves the most, but society values those who appear to know, not those who actually do. The charismatic fool becomes an idol because he represents the freedom not to think, not to doubt, not to complicate. He soothes the inner tension of an exhausted population. And in the end, the question is, who do you want to follow? The one who confronts you or the one who comforts you? Want to stop someone from thinking? Don't forbid them. Just distract them. The saturation technique is simple. Flood people's minds with so much useless information that they can no longer tell what matters. Trivial news, manufactured controversies, hollow scandals, all of it designed to take up mental space, to drain attention. We're constantly connected, but almost never present. We jump from one piece of content to the next without digesting anything. Our attention is sucked into shallow, addictive stimuli, and when the mind is exhausted, it clings to what's easiest, most repeated, most superficial. Huxley called this the sea of irrelevance, and we are all drowning in it. Not because we're weak, but because we've been trained this way. We're conditioned to prefer distraction over silence. But it's in silence that real thought begins. The question is, who has time for silence anymore? Stupidity has become a refuge, a defense mechanism. Thinking demands effort, confrontation, responsibility. Stupidity, on the other hand, brings immediate rewards, less conflict, more acceptance, lighter burdens. Those who don't think, don't bother anyone. Those who repeat are included. Modern society has learned to reward conformity dressed as kindness. The truth is, many embrace stupidity not because they can't think, but because they're emotionally exhausted. Constant questioning is a heavy load, and ignorance, though costly, is light. The ignorant carry no weight of doubt, no ethical dilemma. They simply live or survive within a script handed to them. And that script is carefully written by the dominant voices, media, religion, schools, politics, all reinforcing, don't think too much, just adapt. Stanford University studies show that in groups, the presence of a more intelligent person activates feelings of threat in others. It literally triggers parts of the brain associated with fear and pain. In other words, intelligence can hurt, and where there's pain, there's rejection. In this case, stupidity is convenient. It protects, it embraces, and what should be a flaw becomes a social asset. After all, no one rejects the person who doesn't challenge them. But the phenomenon doesn't stop with the individual, it spreads like a virus. Groups form bubbles where thought is leveled downward, where anyone who dares to disagree is silenced, where stupidity becomes the entry ticket to belonging. In digital bubbles, for example, all you have to do is say what everyone else is saying to be accepted. just repeat the meme, react to the same collective outrage, share the same scandal. Carl Jung called this the collective unconscious, a field where ideas and emotions replicate, reinforce, and automate themselves. And in this unconscious field, stupidity thrives. It spreads through repetition, through emotion, through convenience. Thinking has become an act of subversion, and subversives are not welcome. Look at the comment sections, trending topics, public debates. What wins isn't the most lucid idea, but the loudest, and noise feeds on the crowd. When everyone says the same thing, even if it's nonsense, it gains legitimacy. And those who try to add nuance are called arrogant or complicated. Collective stupidity doesn't tolerate exceptions. And that's what makes it so dangerous. Thinking hurts. Thinking isolates. Thinking makes you see what others pretend not to. That's why so many give up. That's why so many surrender. Being lucid in a world that celebrates ignorance is a quiet form of martyrdom. The loneliness of thought isn't poetic. It's real. Often, thinking distances you from easy conversations, shallow friendships, and collective certainties. Montaigne once said, "Not by obligation, but by curiosity." But today, curiosity is punished. Those who ask too much are seen as conspiracists. Those who see too much are called crazy. Those who feel too much end up exhausted. The cost of lucidity is high, but the cost of stupidity is invisible and therefore much higher, because ignorance charges interest in wasted time, in poor decisions, in a life that was never truly yours. That's why throughout history, the greatest thinkers were often solitary. Not out of misanthropy, but inevitability. They saw earlier, felt deeper, and that inevitably set them apart. Thinking is an act of courage, but often it's also an act of silent resistance. It's taught, it's institutionalized, it's inherited. Schools that don't teach how to think, only how to repeat. Media that informs without questioning. Families that educate through fear, not through freedom. Stupidity doesn't come from nowhere. It's planted, watered, and harvested by those who profit from a docile, predictable, and manipulable society. From an early age, we're rewarded for obedience, not for questioning. The child who asks too many questions is corrected. The student who challenges the teacher is punished. The employee who thinks differently is silenced. We've raised entire generations who confuse obedience with virtue, and layer by layer, critical thinking is stripped away. Journalist Susan Jacoby once wrote that the greatest threat to democracy isn't tyranny, it's ignorance, because ignorance doesn't need chains, it chains itself. And a society that doesn't think doesn't resist, not because it can't, but because it doesn't want to. But there is a way out, and it starts with a decision. Don't settle for the easy, don't settle for the shallow, don't settle for what everyone else accepts. The antidote to stupidity isn't encyclopedic knowledge, it's honest doubt, it's conscious silence, it's the voluntary discomfort of thinking for yourself. Yes, the path is lonely, but it's the only one that leads to real freedom. Carl Jung once said that becoming untouchable isn't about escaping the world, it's about no longer reacting to it. It's about choosing where to place your attention. Choosing what gets in and what stays out, refusing to be part of the crowd, and choosing to be present. When you start doing that, the world changes. Because you change, and those who change become reference points, even if silent ones. Doubt, introspection, silence, pause, all of that is resistance. All of that is wisdom in motion. It's not about winning arguments, it's about refusing to live a pre-packaged life. Thinking for yourself is the greatest act of rebellion in a world determined to fit you into a mold at any cost. Stupidity rules not because it's powerful, but because it's convenient. It thrives where there's exhaustion, fear, and the desire to belong, but you don't have to be part of that. You can choose to step out, to think, even if it hurts, to question, even if it costs you something. Because in the end, the world is not shaped by the many who repeat,
but by the few who dare to see. If this video stirred you, made you uncomfortable, or woke something up in you, like subscribe, and check out the suggested video right here. I'll see you there. Or better, we'll recognize each other there, in
silence, in the space between one thought and the next, where freedom begins.